to The Shoreline, brought to you by Shores and Islands, Ohio, where finding your lake area love is a sure thing. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Jill Bauer, PR Manager for Shores and Islands, Ohio. Today I have joining me from the Shores and Islands, Ohio team, Jennifer Yochem, Assistant Director of Marketing. Hi, Jen.
Hello there.
Thanks for being here today.
Of course, happy to do it.
And we bring you The Shoreline every week to give you the inside scoop on what's happening here in our island and coastal communities. We made it through the month of January as we are in the final stretch. February starts this weekend, and there's so much to look forward to next month, from Vermilion's Ice A Fair. They have an ice festival. We have Valentine's Day coming up, and for many, a long weekend with President's Day there. And we have, of course, our local homage to all things winter, the Burning Snowman Fest in Port Clinton. So, Jen, what are you looking forward to for the month of February?
Honestly, I say I love Vermilion's Ice A Fair. It's so fun. And if you've never been to it, go, because it's nothing like you've ever seen. To see actually people carving out of ice blocks sculptures right there in front of you.
Oh, and the things that they make.
Yes, it's pretty impressive.
How do they even do that?
It's amazing to me. And quickly. They do it so quickly with like a chainsaw. It just blows my mind.
Every time.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're an artist, so you really appreciate
I'm really blown away. Right, exactly. And I also really like the Burning Snowman. That's so fun. And I cannot believe how much it's grown over the last few years.
Yeah. You know what I really like about that event? It's at the end of February. Of course, you can find all the dates for these events on our website, shoresandislands.com. But it's at the end of February when we're just kind of wintered out.
Yes.
Right? So it's kind of like it's an effigy almost. Like
it is. It's a good
saying goodbye to winter. But I also really like that they've expanded it into a 2-day event, because the crux of that festival is that it's an adult event. It's a band music festival with, beer tents, and it's, definitely a 21 and older event. But they expanded it to add the Friday fun family event part of it. So families can go on Friday night. Is it the freeze before? I can't remember.
I think so. Yes, I think you're right. And it's really genius that they did that, because quite frankly, I know families are looking for a way to get the kids out of the house. Everybody's got that cabin fever. I mean, it's a good outlet and fun thing for families to do.
And they do like a mini version of the Burning Snowman for that one. And it gets I think it gets the high school kids involved. They build the snowman, and it's a lot of fun. So, make sure you're checking out all of these fun events coming up. And then, since Jen is our Assistant Director of Marketing wise, what are you particularly excited about for this year? What do you have coming up that people should be on the lookout for?
Well, everybody knows that we always market to not only people getting here, but out-of-towners coming here, and those people attracting people here, but we're also reaching people on a local level. I can't tell you how many times I have heard my friends or somebody I know in the area that says, I didn't even know that was here. I didn't even know you could do that. I feel like we're constantly being the cheerleaders and educators for what there is to do in this area, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, which is also really good. That seems to be a big trend this year, is the low cost, the freebies, things that you don't even think about taking advantage of. I mean, look at how beautiful our parks are in Erie and Ottawa counties. I mean, seriously, those are free. You can go to those anytime, and they're wonderful to explore, even in the wintertime. Yeah. It's quite beautiful.
We even have a fine arts trail.
We do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Lots of places where you can see sculpture and there's art galleries and things like that on it, and museums, things like that. So I know you're on the board now of the Sandusky Cultural Center.
I am. I am proud to be a board member of the Cultural Center. It's a wonderful little gallery, and it's a hidden gem.
I was just going to say, it's one of those things that not a lot of people know about.
No, they don't. It's at the back of the high school, for those of you that do not know.
In Sandusky,
the Sandusky High School. It's next to the planetarium, the Sidney Froman Planetarium, and I highly recommend it. It's free to get in. There's never a charge to get in, and go admire a great, various, talented group of artists are there on display. Gosh, practically during the school year right now, but they'll have some summer showings, like the bonsai. The bonsai trees will be there this summer. And, some other potentials we're talking about. But, I highly recommend it, because it's just fun to go admire all these different works of art.
And the exhibits change pretty regularly. So I know there's one going on right now. And
it's called Atmosphere of Emotions. Ooh. Yes, very cool.
and there'll probably be another one coming up in a couple of weeks. So you can always find that, as well as all kinds of fun things to do. Check out our February events calendar. Check out the highlights on our blog at shoresandislands.com. You can find that. You can find our webcams if you want to, live look at the weather. I know our producer Greg is a big fan of the webcams. We have 9 of them now, I think. Those are available on shoresandislands.com. And of course, be sure to follow us wherever you consume social media, as we're sharing some great content there as well. All of the event information and, what there is to do, photos, videos, all of that great stuff. You can find all those details online at shoresandislands.com. Is there anything else, Jen, that you wanted to add before we get into our special guest for the day?
Sure. Being the art nerd that I am, and in tune with the art community, I would also like to mention the Arts Garage over in Port Clinton. Also a fascinating place to go see. They have gallery and exhibits all the time. They also have classes. I don't know if everybody knows about that, but take advantage of their classes. Right now they are closed for some improvements, some restoration. Yeah. Improvements. So they're closed through February for that. So they do have classes at St. John's Evangelical Lutheran Church in Oak Harbor. And if you're not sure, go to their website. You can find out information about these classes and about what's going on as far as their exhibits go on our website, of course, shoresandislands.com.
And they have classes for adults and children and all ages. So
it is. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Today on the Shoreline is part 2 of our Merry-Go-Round Museum series that we started on last week's episode. A new feature of that museum is actually another museum, a museum within a museum. Joining us on the Shoreline today is David Kaman, proprietor of the downtown Sandusky Cedar Point Historical Museum. David retired in December of 2022 as managing partner of the condominium real estate law firm Kaman and Cusimano. At that same time, he moved back to Sandusky, which is his childhood home. Since the early 1970s, David has collected Cedar Point postcards and artifacts, and over 50 years, he accumulated a massive collection. That collection now serves as the basis of the downtown Sandusky Cedar Point Historical Museum, which is located inside the Merry-Go-Round Museum. David was joined by retired Cedar Point Director of Park Operations, Candy Frankowski. During her career, Candy oversaw the Town Hall Museum, which was inside Cedar Point prior to its closing. Together, David and Candy installed the thousands of artifacts in the museum that are there today. Welcome to the Shoreline, David.
It is so wonderful to be here.
We're so happy to have you. Thank you for being here. Let's start with that personal collection that was in your bio. How did you accumulate so much Cedar Point related memorabilia?
That is a wonderful place to start, but I'll tell you right up front, there have been so many great people who have donated so many tremendous items that the collection of artifacts in the Cedar Point Museum has really blossomed way, way beyond my private collection. But I worked at Cedar Point in the early 70s, 73 to 77, and interestingly, I worked from 11:30 at night till 8 in the morning, and my job was to change light bulbs. And I just fell in love with the peninsula of Cedar Point because I would be out on the beach at 4 o'clock in the morning and seeing the shooting stars. I would watch the sunrise, and you just saw the park in a completely different light with no people in it. And I was explaining to my father one day about how much I loved it, and he said, I have some postcards, and he showed me about a dozen postcards he had collected over the years, and that started me down the path of not just collecting postcards, but this was well before eBay, and my sons and I would travel around the state of Ohio going to estate sales, garage sales, antique stores, and we would just, I started with postcards and pennants, and then before I knew it, everything, and just started buying everything Cedar Point, putting it up in my house, and just developed a great, massive collection.
Wow. Okay, I've been to the museum and I was blown away about how much stuff, memorabilia you have in this museum. You kept that in your house?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I always wondered.
As my sons would move out, I would take over a bedroom.
Oh my gosh.
One bedroom became the Beckling bedroom, and another bedroom became the Coaster bedroom. But yeah, I just had it all in my house. But then, as you indicated, Jill, I retired from the law firm in Cleveland, and so ended up putting it all in storage, completely uncertain uncertain with what I would do with it. And then we heard that Cedar Point would close their town hall museum during COVID and decided not to reopen it. So I reached out to the Cedar Point folks to see if they would let me use the name and cooperate with my starting a Cedar Point museum. And they were supportive. And so here we are. But I have to point out a couple just amazing things happened. You mentioned Candy Frankowski, and so we obtained these display cases, and I had put some of my stuff on the display cases, and I had never met Candy Frankowski, and a mutual friend introduced us. She came into the museum. She met me. She looked at what I had put on the shelves, and her first words were, "No, no, no." And as the person who was the curator of the town hall museum, she was just wonderful in reorganizing, reestablishing how the displays were set up. And with anything, there's holes in it. And she is also a collector of Cedar Point memorabilia. So she filled in a lot of holes. And then together we teamed up with Ken Miller, who's the author of the recent book, Cedar Point Rolling Through the Years. And Ken was able to bring a real chronological history to the museum. So we put everything into all the display cases into chronological history. Prior to Ken writing the book, there was a author, David and Diane Francis wrote several editions of a Cedar Point book. They had both passed away, and their niece, heir of their estate, contacted me and was able to go and meet with her, and she very generously donated all of the stuff from the David Francis estate to the museum. I was fortunate enough to get the phone number for Jungle Larry's wife, Safari Jane, from 30 years at the park starting in 74.
Oh, yeah, we remember.
Called her out of the blue. She was thrilled to death to hear about it. And Safari Jane ended up sending up to us several souvenirs, jackets, shirts actually worn by them in the 80s. And so that is added to the display. A number of former Cedar Point general managers, executives, employees had things in their homes, and far, far too numerous to mention, but a lot of these folks have donated a ton of very, very unique, never before seen gems that are now a part of the display. And most recently, I have to say, and we're just working on this now, a gentleman out of Indianapolis named Jim Rogers met his wife in Norwalk when she was 15 years old. On their second date, they went to Cedar Point, and they started buying really antique Cedar Point stuff that over 50 years, he kept meticulous records of what he bought, pictures of it, and he accumulated and purchased over $50,000 worth of things from the 1910s, 20s, 30s, and 40s from Cedar Point. And he in Indianapolis had a truckload of stuff, and we actually rented a U-Haul, went to Indianapolis, and he donated his entire museum to us. So as late as this morning, we were adding 6 additional display cases, 7-foot-high display cases to really expand our display. And it has everything, as I said, our oldest thing is from 1893, and we go right through the 150th celebration. Every inaugural rider for all the major coasters, the ACE people that have come in have loved it. And so, yes, it all started with my humble little collection, but it has grown just wonderfully well.
I feel like you're probably going to outgrow your space very soon.
We really are concentrating on rotating things through. And so
it's almost a different exhibit every time you visit.
It's going to be a different exhibit regularly. The Merry-Go-Round Museum, you talked to Curry, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful marriage. A merry-go-round, you think of Cedar Point anyway, and the Cedar Point historical aspects. It has just been a wonderful marriage. They have been so very accommodating, but again, they have been more than willing to share their space with us to give us some additional space as we need it. And so it has been a wonderful marriage. Last week, I was able to get a hold of Miss America from 1963, one of Sandusky, if not Sandusky's most famous resident, Jackie Mayer. And she was thrilled to death to hear from us. And she came into the museum for a Rotary function, and we have a small display for Jackie right now, but thrilled to see that because she was crowned Miss Ohio at the Cedar Point Ballroom. And this spring, she is going to be donating a great number of things to us. So we're going to have rotating displays. Restaurant Week is coming up in March in downtown Sandusky. So we're going to have a display on the restaurants that are gone from Cedar Point, the Chart Room and the Marina Steakhouse, and all the different restaurant menus. We have menus from the Silver Dollar Cafe and glassware, silverware from the different restaurants. And so we're going to be rotating through different themes throughout the year with the museum. And so that will keep it fresh, but always changing.
How often do you think you'll be changing those exhibits?
Again, Candy Frankowski, from her perspective of running the Cedar Point Town Hall Museum, will be making those decisions. But I think it's going to be every couple months. We had a display up in December. Our opening day, it was supposed to be the 1st of November, but we opened on December 4th to do kind of a test. And for that, we had a Halloweekends and a Cedar Point in the Park Christmas display. And that was very, very popular. But right now, as we speak, we're removing that. And we have a lot of the ruby red glassware and a lot of the green, very old glassware. So for February, Valentine's Day, March, St. Patrick's Day, we're putting out special displays with the ruby and the green glassware. And so I think it's going to be every few months we'll be changing things up.
Oh, yeah. So you'll have to come back often to see all of the different displays.
It amazed me. I was there most of when we were open in December, and I can't say every person that came in, but virtually every person that came in, like you, Jennifer, came in and went, wow, this is way more than we were expecting. Yeah. This is way cool. And they were all saying, oh, we got to bring back our son. We got to bring back my spouse. And so, yeah, we are looking forward to a lot of repeat customers. Now, I'll tell you, because you hit the nail on the head, is that in December, we had an article in the Toledo Plaid. There was an article on us in the Cleveland Plain Dealer. The Cleveland PBS TV station did a special on us. And we had so many people coming up from Columbus, from the greater Cleveland area, from the greater Toledo area. The number of people that came down special for the Cedar Point Museum from Detroit just blew me away. You would go into the parking lot and you would see all these out-of-state license plates, but I kept waiting for the greater Sandusky, the Shores and Island people to show up. And what I'm told is December's a busy month, but they'll come out in the spring.
Yeah.
But yes, we're really looking forward to getting the locals down there too. And you mentioned, parents looking for something to do with their kids this time of the year. There's nothing better than going into that merry-go-round museum on a wintry day, February, March, bringing your kids in, let them run around a little bit. There's a lot of interactive things they can do there. Plus, ride the merry-go-round. We have a kiddie coaster that they can simulate the ride on the Gemini or the Blue Streak. And so it's a wonderful, wonderful place to come into, whether the weather's good or bad. But if you're looking for something to do in February, March, we're your place.
Absolutely. We talked with Curry a bit last week about targeting those locals, a lot of the people that live in the Shores and Islands region, or, even, close in. Maybe they just kind of think they know what's there, right? They visited once 10 years ago, and they think they know, what it's all about. But getting those people back in, which I really think you're going to be doing, especially with your changing displays, is really going to be beneficial both for you and for the Merry-Go-Round Museum. And as you said, right now is the perfect time, definitely, to visit.
Curry has just been wonderful to work with. Bonnie at the Merry-Go-Round Museum, Mike Young. They've just been a tremendous group to work with. And as I said, it is a marriage made in heaven. It has been perfect.
That's wonderful. I'll tell you what, I saw something in there that tripped me up a little. You had a newsletter in there that I recognized from when I was an employee there many moons ago. I about flipped out when I saw it. I couldn't believe it. And it talked about the big bash, the party they throw for the employees. It was really fun to see that again. So I can't imagine how many different memories and, good feelings you spark by everybody visiting your museum. So what are some of your favorite things in the museum?
Well, hitting on the topic of employees, though, is one of the things about Greater Sandusky is there's so many people here that have worked at Cedar Point over 25 years or retired from Cedar Point after 30 or 35 years. So one of the things we are creating for the locals, because it is our biggest business, is what we call a Cedar Point Hall of Fame. And it's not just for the former general managers. It is going to be we're going to have a plaque up with the people's names, the year they worked there, their department, for anybody that worked at Cedar Point over 25 years. And so we want to honor those people, because Cedar Point wouldn't be what it is today without those people from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s doing what they did. And so we really want to honor the residents of Greater Sandusky who spent all that time there. So we have a special display case, just as you say, Jennifer, with old newsletters, with old name badges, with a lot of the things related to employees. Some of the old yearbooks, believe it or not, just like there's high school yearbooks back in the 70s, they had yearbooks for the employees. There is a group out there of former Cedar Point employees, and we're really hoping to bring them in, bring them together. And again, it's so many good memories.
It'd be like a little class reunion kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
You could also reunite couples that met there.
Oh, it's just
I'm not kidding you. There are people that have gotten married.
Yeah.
And they say they met at Cedar Point. Wouldn't that be kind of fun to kind of do an event like based on that?
Exactly. We have a logbook for visitors to sign in, and we ask what they write, where they worked and so on and what years, but they can also make comments. And it's been amazing to us. I have met at least in 1 month a dozen couples that got married at Cedar Point. And they either got married at Cedar Point or they worked at Cedar Point. Both spouses worked at Cedar Point, met there, and got married. Mm-hmm. And so it is a special place, not only in a lot of people's minds, but also their hearts.
I love that.
And so, we talk about, should we do something? We're not going to be able to pull it together for this February.
Maybe next year.
But next year, we absolutely have already talked about, should we have a special You Got Married at Cedar Point event in February, Valentine's Day of 2026.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. I want to talk just a little bit. Curry talked about it, but I want to hear from your perspective about that relationship. How did you get involved with the Merry-Go-Round Museum? How did you find that as your home?
Great story. I moved back to downtown Sandusky after being gone for over 50 years, and I had all of this memorabilia, and I thought, boy, it'd be really cool if people could see this. So I started exploring different storefronts in downtown Sandusky, different venues where I could put all of this stuff where people could see it, because I knew that they would enjoy it. And one of the things, of course, from my legal career is I knew I had to incorporate, and I knew I wanted to become a 501c3 corporation by Internal Revenue Standards so people could donate their items and get a tax deduction. And I had no experience with museums, and from the Cedar Point Marina, I had met the guy that runs the marina named Michael Young. And Michael Young is on the board at the Merry-Go-Round Museum, and so seeking an education on how to run a museum, I called up Michael Young, asked him if I could meet him for dinner. We met at J Bistro, and I started telling him my ideas, and Mike Young says, Oh my goodness, you have to come to the Merry-Go-Round Museum. We have a room, a good-sized room off the museum itself.
Underutilized.
Yeah. It was just storage at the time and needed paint, needed carpeting, all that. But it was called the Parker Room, and they'd have a birthday party in there now and then. But he said, you have to come and look at this. It sounds like it would be an ideal location for you. So I met with Mike Young. I met with Curry. Bonnie is the woman there that really runs the day-to-day things also, and the three of them just were so overwhelmingly positive about the location that's the direction we went. And so it started out with fixing the walls, painting, carpeting, getting our display cases in. The lighting in there was not perfect for museum artifacts, so we purchased display cases with LED lighting, and they are wonderful. And it's been so wonderful because they are so very accommodating. So it's just been just a wonderful, wonderful relationship.
And so now you are located inside the Merry-Go-Round Museum, and currently you're included with the admission that you pay for the Merry-Go-Round. So you get basically two museums for one price.
We are currently and always will be included with the Merry-Go-Round Museum. So we are at now additional price. You're getting two museums for the price of one.
That's amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us about your museum or your collection, or why people should visit?
Well, we only have a limited amount of time, and so I could talk all day. Jennifer earlier mentioned just some of what's my favorite artifacts and so on, and we just have so many unique things. As I said, we have the original rider, inaugural rider tokens and memorabilia from all the coasters over the years. So the Ace people love that. We have part of the pirate ride, and so the kids from the 60s, just love seeing the things from the 60s.
Do you have the Berenstain Bears? Oh,
we have a complete shelf. We actually have part of the Berenstain Bears uniforms. We have a lot of different Berenstain Bear memorabilia from Avalanche Run when that was out. We have the 3D glasses. There's just so many little unique items. Dan Keller, former general manager, John Hildebrand, Jason McClure, Carey, all of these folks, even Tony Clark, the current communications director, have donated things to the museum. And so we have all these neat little trinkets. The Merry-Go-Round Museum itself has all these big horses, and we have all these little unique items. But believe it or not, in 1931, almost 100 years ago, my mother and my uncle were at Cedar Point, and they had their picture taken on a merry-go-round horse in 1931, and we have that. It says Cedar Point 1931, and so my favorite piece in the entire museum is a picture of my mother. She had to be like 6 years old, and my uncle, who had to be like 8 years old, sitting on a merry-go-round horse. So, wow, karma. It
all comes full circle.
It really does. It really does. And so what I would say is, if you're in the Shores and Island area, you're looking for something to do, come see us at the Merry-Go-Round Museum.
Where can people go for more information on the Downtown Sandusky Cedar Point Historical Museum?
Really two different locations on social media. There is the Merry-Go-Round Museum site, of course, and then also we have our official name is the Downtown Sandusky Cedar Point Historical Museum. And so on any of the social medias, if you're searching and you type in Downtown Sandusky Cedar Point Historical Museum, you'll find us. But in February, we are open on Saturdays from 11 to 4 and Sundays from 12 to 4. And then in March, we start opening every day except for Mondays from 11 to 4.
Really looking forward to the reopening of the Merry-Go-Round Museum. And I sadly haven't been there yet, so I really can't wait until next weekend when I can visit for myself. So, well, thank you, David. Special thanks to David Kaman for joining us today. Fans of Cedar Point, local history, and just really cool stuff. Be sure sure to check out the downtown Sandusky Cedar Point Historical Museum on your next visit to the area. You can find information on museum admission, hours, prices, things like that at merry-go-round-museum.org. And of course, thanks to Jen Yochem for joining me today and helping out with this interview. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a minute of the action here in Shores and Islands, Ohio. You can also find more information, including past episodes of the podcast, online at shoresandislands.com. And we'll see you next time on The Shoreline.